Grace Hartman, welcome to the Running a Fight podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
Good. Thanks for having me.
I was going to say this 2 seconds ago, and then I said I would save it for the episode. So diving into the thought that you're probably like, what was Dominic thinking there? So I don't know if you know this, but I'm from the great state of Ohio as well. And we had some overlap in high school. I was D1, you were D2, if I'm not mistaken. But I just remember I definitely lived in the era and legacy of Grace Hartman just dominating, and it's just being a joke of like, one, how well you would place in some of the guys' races that you were racing in, because you were just dominating people so much. We'll dive into this, but you're an 8-time state champion. So I always knew in the back of my head that we would do a podcast one day, and then you just absolutely started obliterating the NCAA scene, and I was like, I finally have to make it happen. So this is an episode to end this long rant that I've known would happen for years, and it's a privilege to finally make it come to life.
Well, I'm excited to be on here. I don't think era of Grace is really what my high school career was. But yeah, I knew of you when the podcast got started. So it's super cool to be on and tie back to my Ohio roots a little bit.
We'll start here because I think it's an interesting place to start. In some group chats I'm in with different Ohio connections and people, one of the conversations over the past week was, it's interesting the extent to which Ohio kids did really well in Madison. What's your take as an Ohio kid who did very well in Madison?
Okay, well, I think Ohio gets so much hate. Literally across the board, Ohio athletes, specifically in running, have been so successful. I honestly haven't followed up too much. I know William Zagorski did super well. I've always kind of followed along with his career, and I'm sure like Nathan, all those guys. But I think growing up in Ohio, you have those Midwest roots. Everybody out here like is just willing to put in the work, especially when cross country is in the Midwest. So I'm not surprised at all. But even on like the sprinting side, Ohio is just so successful. So I love to see it.
What are your recollections? Obviously, I'm trying to think where NC State is. Raleigh? Is that where it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that mixed up with UNC, Chapel Hill, the Triangle, Duke, the three of them. I always get mixed the cities up. But for you, growing up in Ohio, obviously Raleigh has a little bit nicer weather in January than Ohio did. What memories do you have, post-state meet December training for indoor track, of the slushy winter weather training through it? How do you feel like you grew as an athlete during that time?
Well, I always tell my teammates here, I'm like, I hardly ever got to run indoor track because first of all, our team didn't have it. But second of all, I would always get injured in the winter. Like I either got an Achilles issue because it was so cold out, or I've had like multiple stress reactions in my tibia, literally from running on the ice. I would put on like the moose track things and do hill repeats on like icy hills. So I was pretty done with it. But, I went back for Thanksgiving and it was like a real feel of 10 degrees. I'm used to 40 degrees being cold here, so I can't say I necessarily miss it. Maybe for Christmas, but definitely I feel like I worked my hardest during the winter months in Ohio.
Speaking of being home for Thanksgiving, that was obviously right after you placed 5th at the NCAA Cross Country Championships, which we'll get into in this conversation. You're also running the BU 5K this weekend, which this may be out around that time, either right before or right after. I'm curious, what was training like for you? Because you're not shut off. You still obviously want to stay in like tip-top shape. Was that frustrating at all or demotivating going outside, not having training partners?
It's just a couple of days, so I wouldn't say it's necessarily demotivating, but I had one workout. I had like a 4-mile tempo on the track, 30-mile-per-hour winds. It's snowing, so cold. My dad was biking with me around on the track, and the entire time I was just like, I hate my life so much. Like this, I was being so dramatic. But yeah, and it's definitely kind of weird over Thanksgiving break, but I've got my friend Elizabeth. She always comes and bikes along with me. So honestly, it wasn't super painful. I enjoy going out and running, but I will say I let myself sleep in a little bit. So that was nice. I would run at like 10:30 instead of 7:30.
Looking back on your high school years, how many friends do you have present day as this version of Grace when you go back home, whether it's people you reconnect with to run or old teammates, coaches? What's the community like when you go back?
Oh my goodness, yeah. Honestly, like, I don't know the current girls on the team super well, but throughout my 4 years, I'm still so close with so many of the women on our team. I go back and I'll still like go to practices and stuff just to say hi to everybody. I've got like 3 or 4 super, super close friends that I'll hang out with pretty frequently. Elizabeth specifically, she ran for Villanova, and she's out in Chicago now. So I love when she can come back and kind of hang out. We'll do a lot of training runs together, and then I generally see my coaches when I come back. But they were both gone this year, so definitely still have a pretty close connection with everybody. It's a good little tight knit group of people, but also Oakwood is so small, like everybody knows everybody. So
For you, are you the most, I don't know, Oakwood, apologies. Are you the most accomplished athlete to ever come out of that high school?
I don't know, to be honest. Yeah, it's a small school, but we've had a couple really accomplished runners, to be honest. But I'm probably up there. I'm not sure. We've had I want to say Bob Scholl went to Oakwood, so probably not. Maybe he didn't.
I don't even know who that is, quite frankly. Sorry, Bob, if
Okay,
you're listening.
he won Olympic gold, I believe, in the 10K.
Oh, really? What?
Yeah.
How old is this man?
I think he just died, actually, like within the last couple of years. But
What's his last name? Bob.
Scholl, Schul. I could be so
Okay,
off the
well.
field. He went to Oakwood, but he's great. So shout out to him, I guess.
1964 Summer Olympics in Tokyo, Olympic gold medal in the 5K.
5K, yeah.
He's from Middletown, Ohio. What in the world? I did not know this. Wow, you learn something new every day, as they say.
I
Let me
guess
look up his high school.
Yeah. So
Dang.
surrounded by
There's a meet named after him. He's in the OATCC Hall of Fame. Wow.
the Bob
No,
Scholl.
he didn't go to Oakwood. He didn't go to Oakwood. You're safe.
Okay.
You're safe.
But I know the Bob
He
Scholl
went to
every single year.
he went to West Milton High School, which I've never heard of.
Well, then,
Yeah.
I guess I probably
You're safe.
wouldn't.
You're safe. So in the week between NCAA Cross and BU 5K, what does training look like for you? Are you hitting it hard? Are you taking a little bit of like reprieve, letting the legs recover? And how'd you come out of, the 6K in Madison?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like coming out of Madison, it was pretty all right. Usually I feel fairly trashed, but the way the race played out, I feel like we were chilling for quite a while, and then it turned into like a 1,500 or 2K race. So honestly, the legs recovered pretty well. We hit a pretty good workout on Tuesday, and then from here on out, just kind of, general tune-up stuff. We're only going to burn the hay at this point, so just trying to keep the body and mind in check, and get ready to rip some fast mini circles, so doing some 200s.
If I talked to you in June of 2025 and we were to talk about, your preparation leading into ACCs or regionals or nationals, I'm sure your training would look quite a bit different then compared to now, even though it's the same event you're running, just because you're mostly on cross training at the moment. How do you feel like the cross work translates to the track? Because it clearly does. It's weird. Like, Graham Bland, both genders run fast every year at this meet. And it's interesting. I think it shows that like many different training methods work, but how confident do you go into something like a 5K like this? Or is it more just like, let's see what I can do? Because, we haven't really been running 5K pace on the track much at all.
I think the biggest difference is like the fact that you're running around a 200-meter track. The fitness, like, I feel like for track season, I always am fastest in the 1,500 when I'm in like really great 10K shape. Because like I'm just an endurance-based athlete. So I think when you're in cross-country shape, you're kind of in everything shape. So I don't think there's too much of a concern about that. It's more or less like the mechanics of running fast around, a track. So definitely it's going to feel different on the body. But I think everybody who raced well in cross-country should go into this meet pretty confident that like, okay, I'm in good shape to run some sort of mark, hopefully. So, yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, is this your first year doing the BU 5K after cross season? Or have you done this before?
No, I did. Okay, my freshman year, I guess I didn't run cross. I did the 3K. And then last year I did the 5K, but it wasn't super pretty. So
for you, what does that travel period look like? When do you show up to BU, and what's kind of the process like to get ready and mentally prepare yourself to rip a fast 5K?
If I'm being honest, we go up the day before. We go out to this nice place called Barcino. We always get all these appetizers. It's super fun. Honestly, it's just like a fun meet. And I feel like I focused on this a lot this year. Like when I have fun, typically I've run well in the past. So we just do that. The 5Ks at like 4 o'clock the next day. So, I'll go to bed early, but I feel like I've gotten so used to like honing in like my mental preparation for cross country that like I can do it pretty quickly. It's just, on the plane ride over, I'll think about it. But other than that, I'm just like, it's just like any other workout or race. Just, get your stuff done. So
Because it's, such an early season, almost like before the season even starts meet, do you feel like that lack of pressure because you have so many more chances to run fast after this? Do you feel like that helps you almost race and take some more chances and risks because it doesn't really matter at the end of the day?
partially yes and partially no. Last year, like this race didn't go well, and I did end up qualifying to indoors in the 5K, like at the last possible meet. So like I know that no matter what happens, it's doesn't matter all that much, but also it's really nice to be able to go and get a mark down. So definitely there's a little bit of pressure, but at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, me and my teammates have had like a successful cross country season and we're happy from that going into this. So not too much pressure, just kind of, it's like, it's fun to see what you can do off of cross country training. So
If I was to go back to Grace post 2024 track season and ask her about her goals for the cross season, would she have had fifth place in the back of her head?
that's a tough one because I feel like I am somebody that always has a lot of belief in myself, but at the same time, I think fifth was a little bit aggressive for me to, I was definitely like, oh, next year I want to be top 20. The year before I was like 63rd or something. So it was definitely a pretty large jump. So I wouldn't have necessarily not believed you, but I definitely wouldn't have thought it would be likely. So, but the 2024 track season, I did make a lot of improvements. So I feel like I saw the potential. It just, wasn't quite there yet.
Was there a specific race or moment or conversation with a coach, Coach Henes, where that slowly started to shift and maybe you started to think bigger and about something like a fifth place finish? Or was it really only after you finished the race that you were like, oh, wow, okay, I just did that. Okay, we'll take it.
Yeah, no, I think throughout the season, I just, over the summer, my training was like it went well, but it was kind of rocky coming off of trials. I got like E. coli or something really bad. I had a messed up like stomach illness for like 6 weeks. It turned into this like gluten issue. And so I wasn't super confident like going into the season. There was a lot of like hesitancy. So when I started racing, I think our first like real race was Chicago. And I felt pretty good there. And then at or I guess it was pre-nats, I kind of saw the potential there and because I had gotten sixth. And so that definitely opened my eyes to like, oh my goodness, maybe you could place in the top 10 type of thing. But you never know on the day, you got to show up and all the women in the NCAA right now are here to fight. So definitely like that was a goal of mine, but it was a loose goal.
I think a lot of people, when they see on paper, the jump from 63rd to fifth place, they would think the thing that unlocks that is like a killer summer training block. Maybe even I would assume that. But as you just mentioned there, you were sick, you were out of it. And I think a lot of times something like that would even discourage you more than, give you confidence that you can even play 63rd again. I'm sure you were worried you would even be able to compete the same. How did you overcome those doubts and those like unforeseen, it's not in your control, it's not even like an injury where you overtrained, one of those just weird freak accidents? How'd you overcome that and build back that belief that not just you could get back to something like a 63rd place finish, which is very respectable, but do what you did at nationals?
Yeah, there was a lot of worry that like my first week back training, I genuinely like could not run a mile without stopping, which like I know everybody gets out of shape, but like it was kind of terrifying. I could like my stomach just was in shambles 24/7. So I think I kind of had to let go of expectation to a degree. I mean, I was super concerned at the start of the season. Like I was able to get my training in. It just wasn't always super comfortable. And at the start of the season, we were literally like supposed to do our Wolfpack invite and kind of do a workout. Me and Hannah were going to do that. And I was telling coach, I'm like, the love of the sport is not there right now. Like this summer was just such a mess. I was so stressed out all the time, which was really disappointing. And then, I think doing that race with her kind of like it brought the fun back. And after that, like a switch kind of flipped. And suddenly things started to like roll a little bit better. And just throughout the season, I feel like me and just my team as a whole kind of gained momentum, and everybody like was so supportive of me. They gave me so much confidence. So I'm not like saying training was bad by any means. It wasn't. It just, it was a mental challenge. So
What would you say to someone out there listening who has big dreams and aspirations, but they're undergoing some sort of setback, whether it's some weird stomach bug or, a small Achilles hiccup or whatever it might be? What would be some advice to
yeah,
overcome setbacks as someone who obviously did that and then some this past few months?
people don't necessarily like see it, but specifically in high school, I had injury after injury after injury. Sophomore to senior year just was riddled with them. And there were a lot of times where I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I have these goals. I see the potential that I could, be a competitive athlete, but things just don't seem to come together. And I think what has really just brought me back is like, why am I doing this sport? When things are really difficult, it's like, no matter what happens, I'm going to keep running because I love running. So whatever adversity you're facing, it's like, if you're unable to train, like cross train with just thinking about the fact that like you'll be able to get back to running at some point and like the joy that that's going to bring. And I think also just finding, you need to find something outside of it too. Like you need to have things going on that can keep you entertained. Because if you're thinking about training all the time, like you're not going to do well. So kind of focusing on the things that you can control and, just trying to enjoy the process, even if you're not able to compete or run at that moment.
I know you mentioned you had a big 2024 track season that you feel like was indicative of some growth and success. But again, that 63rd place to fifth place finish, I think everyone and their mother would want growth like that year over year. What would you attribute that growth to off the top of your head? And how would you direct people in terms of replicating something similar of like a big jump year to year?
There are a couple really big things. I mean, first of all, coach and my teammates, like I can't thank them enough. Coach Henes is just the biggest supporter you could ever have. I trust in her so much, and she's just been really like reinstilling in me the goals that I can have and that she'll help me get to, which has been super special. Having teammates that are just so supportive. Our team culture has been really great this season. Having Hannah there to push me every day, that has been just incredible. But also, I feel like within the last year, I've started working with the sports psychologist, and he's really helped me with my mental game. Like, as somebody who has like a lot of anxiety, I feel like I was getting in my own way so frequently. And I'm actually studying psychology, so it's kind of interesting, putting this stuff to use. And within the last year, I've really just been able to kind of find the joy in my sport. Doesn't mean it doesn't come and go like over the summer. But actually, somebody just sent me an email from Nationals, and it's a picture of us probably like 2K in, and I'm just beaming. Like, and I feel like that's not super common. I love what I'm doing, and I've been able to really bring the joy to racing. When I'm running, I'm like, there's nothing I'd rather be doing. So, if you love what you're doing, and just kind of enjoying it every single day, I think it's easy to get better. And, obviously plateaus happen, but taking that in stride and just realizing the greater goal.
Speaking of Coach Henes and the Wolfpack team, I'm sure when you got recruited out of high school, I actually know this, like they were in their dominant years with Caitlin Toohey and Hannah Steelman and Sam Bush and the whole likes of them that you can talk about names endlessly, winning national championships, competing for national championships, Caitlin doing her own thing. That's really never been done before on the NCAA female scene. And now you're kind of in this unique period where a lot of those people have graduated and it's kind of like a new era of the Wolfpack team. And I know you're one of the people leading that charge. Can you speak to the culture that you came into and now becoming kind of a leader on the team and, trying to bring the program back to where it was, but not just that, like it is a new chapter and figuring out your own path and own steps?
I think the biggest thing is, I came into a team that was highly competitive, and it was honestly terrifying. Like coming in as a freshman, it was a very intense environment. I love the women on the team, but there was a lot of stress. Feeling like we had to come back and win, and then win again the next year. And I think coming into that was actually really beneficial for me because it gave me a lot of role models to look up to and to try to emulate, which made me a much more successful athlete. And I think going into this year, there was a big narrative that people were saying that like, oh, NC State has lost so many people, we're rebuilding, like things aren't going as well. But I think that this season has honestly been equally as special compared to like all the others I've been a part of. Because I mean, for our team to be able to come in eighth, we have such a young team. None of us, our only technically junior was Brooke, and she had to overcome a lot of adversity this year, and just has been out for a really long time. Other than that, we were all freshmen and sophomores who competed at nationals. So I think that really speaks to our team. It's rebuilding a culture where like everybody feels super supported and knows that every single person has their best interest at heart. Because listen, like our team culture has always been good, but when you have 25 women, not everybody is going to get along every single day. And that has been the case through all of our years here. And I think we're really just trying to build a culture where like, even if somebody isn't necessarily your best friend, we are all very close, but you're still going to do everything you can to make sure that you're supporting the other person. So I think all of us have been just so supportive of one another, and our group was incredibly cohesive. Like I am best friends with everybody on our team. So, you see all the women around you working hard, and it makes you want to work hard. So I think really cool things are going to come to our team in the next couple of years, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
You mentioned the competitive culture and nature of the program when you came in as a freshman. We'll get
Mhm.
into your high school years here in a minute, but as a multi-time state champion, back-to-back Gatorade Player of the Year, State Player of the Year, like you didn't really have competition in Ohio. I don't care what you say. I know you're humble. Was that difficult transition coming not just into the NCAA, but on a team that was the best in the NCAA at the time, and going from like top dog by a mile to then just one of the people on the team?
I've got to be honest. I feel like I came into college with a really good perspective on it because I had just been craving like having people around me. And I humbled myself very quickly. I was like, okay, you're going to be at the bottom of the totem pole. And you know what? Kind of going in with that mentality was actually really relieving for me because for once I wasn't having to lead everything. I was able to just kind of follow. And I feel like you're the product of who you surround yourself by. And I knew I was surrounding myself by a lot of just incredible, talented, hardworking people. So I wasn't concerned when I was falling off of a workout. I mean, there were definitely tears at times, but I think just I was really enjoying where I was at. So coming in and not being at the top was completely fine. It was kind of difficult running races and like literally being lapped multiple times in some events, but I think I did have a pretty healthy perspective with it.
Speaking on Coach Henes specifically, as I mentioned, her
Mhm.
success within the program, both with individuals as well as with programs and teams. What's your relationship like with her, and can you speak to the impact she's had on you as an athlete in person during your time at NC State?
Oh yeah, I mean, I always thank Coach Henes for taking a bet on me in high school because I was pretty injury prone, and she has somehow, knock on wood, like I've been healthy so far my entire time at NC State. And I think Coach Henes, she's so special because she's almost like a motherly figure to all of us. There are 20, 25 women on our team, and she stops at nothing to make sure that every single one of us like is cared for. She comes up to every person before practice to make sure like they know what they're doing, their mileage, everything. If you need to have like a personal discussion with her, she will stop everything and have a discussion with you. Like she also is so good at making sure that you know what you're capable of, which is something that a lot of us haven't had in the past. So to have somebody that I respect so much tell me that they believe in me and know where I can go has just been the best thing that my athletic career, like in my athletic career, to have. And she's just a support inside and outside of running. She wants us to be good people, not just good athletes, which is incredibly important, especially in this sport. So,
For you, looking ahead to your future in the NCAA and future in the sport and future as a leader on the program, what are your goals and ambitions, both individually but also for the team? Things you want to accomplish before you hang up the Wolfpack jersey.
yeah, obviously, I'd love to come back with a team title and cross. That's always the goal. I've got 2 more years here to do that. So definitely excited to pursue that goal. I always tell Coach Henes at the start of each year, my only goal is to stay healthy and make sure I'm enjoying what I'm doing. So I'm not somebody who sets like super hard set things. I'm obviously it's everybody's goal to win a title or set a record, whatever. But I feel like things come with time, and I'm just excited about the trajectory that Coach has us going in. So I think, I want to run quite a bit faster. I would love to win something at some point, but I think just really making sure I'm still in love with the sport every day and can do things. My main goal is to make sure I'm supporting the women around me. So whatever I can do to do that, I'll leave fulfilled if I can accomplish that.
Speaking of winning things, you won the 2024 ACC Cross Country title. Take me through that race and what it meant to you to win an ACC title on the grass.
Yeah, that was so special because it was our home course, good old Wake Med. I have a mixed relationship with that course, but I, going into it for like 2 weeks, I had been having a lot of really weird spinal problems. I still don't know what it was, but it was pretty debilitating. I'm convinced I had like a cracked rib or a rib out of place. It was pretty bad. All my teammates could tell you the night before the race, I was in a mental rut, like had a complete meltdown, just because so many things have been going on in life that were kind of uncontrollable. So I was definitely kind of stressed going into ACCs, needing to show up for our team. But, Hannah and I had talked about kind of our plan for racing and everything. And with her help and with Coach's help and the team support, I was able to pull myself together. And I know that course really well at this point. So I just kind of I knew that I wanted to make a move right around 3 to 4K to try to open the race up. And on the day, I ended up feeling pretty good and got it done. So it was really awesome, though, because all of my family and friends were there to support. I was hearing, like, go Wolfpack. Even some UNC people were saying, go Wolfpack. I'm like, oh, my goodness. So, yeah, it was just incredibly special. Yeah.
Going back all the way back in time, Grace, take me through your start in the sport of running and what your first impressions of the sport were.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I was a competitive tennis player for 10 years. That's
really?
The lore. Yes. And I was
pausing here real quick. Have you picked up pickleball yet? And if so, how good are you?
Okay.
Are you a pickleball hater?
I'm not a pickleball hater. I just I'll do it. I don't think I like it because I'm actually not that great at it. Like, I'm good at tennis, but I'm not. The short thing, I'm always woofing it. And also, Coach doesn't love us playing other sports because, injury risk or whatever. So, and I would get way too competitive. So I'm not anti-pickleball, but yeah. And in tennis, I was pretty good. Like, I feel like I was on the trajectory where I would have done that in college. But ninth grade year, tennis is crazy if you know the sport. Like, you are traveling every weekend, competing for like 8 hours on the weekend, like just back to back to back competitions. So it's definitely a lot. So I guess it was 8th grade, I decided to do cross country just because my friends were doing it and we ran to Dairy Queen. So I did that. I think we ran like 3 or 4 miles a week. I remember my first race. It was the Bob Scholl invite, and I had a cold. And everybody was like, Grace, you shouldn't race. Like, you're sick. I'm like, I am absolutely racing. Are you kidding me? And I got 13th place and got a brown ribbon. And I'm like, this sport sucks. Like, I'm stopping. But, we kept on going. I think I won the next invite. It was like a duel me. I'm like, oh, man, I'm so good. I was not. But definitely just kind of ended up sticking because I met a lot of friends through running. And then I had good coaches, and they really, really supported me. So definitely just started with having fun with it, and then maybe got more serious like my junior year of high school.
Was it surprising to you how good you were off the bat after really having no sort of experience or background in the sport of running and not even something like soccer, which I hear a lot of, which is somewhat similar to running? I don't think tennis is too much. Tennis is quite out there.
I think it was surprising, kind of the success I found. But I was always good at like the pacer test and everything like that. And my mom, she never ran in college, but she could have. She was an incredible runner and athlete. So I guess I knew it was kind of like genetically maybe in me, but I was always the person in tennis that could get to the ball. So, you know, and I wasn't necessarily surprised that I could run decently, but I didn't expect, to be able to compete at the level that maybe I have. But, my grandpa was like, he was in the NFL for a while for football, so had, the athletic genes maybe, but yeah.
Take me through the first ever state title, the first of the 8 that would eventually come. What was that day and that feeling in that moment like, and what do you think it did for your confidence and belief in what you could do in the sport?
Oh man, yeah. Well, okay, so I had run the 1600 right beforehand at the state meet, and I had gotten second by like 0.01 seconds. It was the tightest race of my life, and I was fuming. So going into the 3200, it was me and my friend Elizabeth, who I was talking about, and she was like kind of around second or third. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna run with Elizabeth for a mile, and then I'm gonna try to run a little bit faster for a mile. And it kind of ended up working out. I just remember being so happy because I was like, yes, I got some redemption. But I think she came third and I was first. And it was just super exciting, like, to be able to take a picture with our little medals. And actually, me and her and then our 4x8 team, we ended up like getting second as a team that year. And we won the next couple years after that. So that was super cool to see like our points add up, even though we had like 4 of us competing. So, it was definitely a special moment. Kind of like, oh, like maybe I'll end up doing this later on. I don't know, but
Which of the 8 is the most memorable and means the most looking back on it?
Cross country my junior year. Because I had narrowly, well, yeah, it wasn't super narrow in cross country, but I had gotten second my freshman and sophomore year. And then take note, like D2 isn't crazy competitive, but I was like, man, I got to get this title. Junior year was not going well. My iron was super low. Like I was just kind of trashing every race, and somehow I pulled it together for state and ended up pulling off the win by again like half a second. So that was definitely super cool. Our team got second. I think that was the closest we got to winning a cross country title. So that was awesome. I still have like pictures from that meet all over my room that one of my friends made like a little scrap board poster of it. So yeah, that was a special day.
I've mentioned the 8 state titles, also the back-to-back Gatorade State Player of the Year. We also talked about the hate Ohio gets at the beginning of this conversation. What would be some advice? We have obviously, I think with me being from Ohio, it's just where it naturally comes from, as well as it's a big running state. But a lot of people who listen to the podcast are from Ohio, and I think have big ambitions in the sport and look up to someone like you or the other people who have done it at a high level before as inspiration that they too can do something at a high level. What would be some words of advice and wisdom to maybe like a freshman or sophomore listening who's from Ohio? And if you're not from Ohio, I'm sure that advice applies as well, but I'm Ohio biased. That wants to do big things in the sport, but maybe doesn't feel like they have the support or belief from other people because it is a small state.
Yeah, my coaches are from Ohio too, so I always talk to this about them. There are a lot of places from that state where I feel like, yeah, the resources are super limiting. There are not a lot of big meets. There's not a lot of competition. It's likely that you don't even have a track to compete on. Like, that just kind of seems to be the trend. But I think the thing about Ohioans and like Midwesterners in general is like we have very like put the work in values. And that'll carry you a very far way. It doesn't matter if you're not competing at a national level. Like I never made it to a national cross country meet. I tried. But you don't have to be the best of the best to be successful eventually. Just keep on working. If you're lifting up bowls or something in your backyard instead of weights, like it works, you work with what you got. So, you don't need the crazy resources or anything. Just have fun with it and, appreciate the fact that you're training through some crazy weather. You could have 100 degrees or you could have like 0 degrees. So it makes you hardy. That's for sure.
Grace, final serious question for you. For those listening to this conversation, I guess you gave some advice to Ohio kids, but more broadly, someone listening who wants to take their running to the next level, what would be the final takeaway message that you want to leave with the audience today?
Ooh, I would say specifically like women, if you're like a younger woman listening to this, make sure you take your nutrition very seriously. Like in order to get to the next level, you need to be able to eat enough. That is incredibly important. You need to make sure that you're having fun in the sport. Like, that is probably one of the biggest keys in being able to be successful long term. If you overtrain at a young age, you're going to burn out. If you're not having fun, you're not going to run to your potential. At the end of the day, running is just something that you do. It's not who you are. And I know that's overemphasized a lot, but honestly, it's so true. Like, you have to have other passions. So just try to run and compete with a lot of love, and know that you're supported by so many, but also that, like, if a race doesn't go bad, if a race goes badly, it's not the end of the world. Like, there will always be another race, and that's the beautiful thing about running. There are always opportunities. You know, you can jump in your local 5K or something. So, you know, just take everything in stride and enjoy what you're doing. Give love to your teammates. You know, yeah.
Speaking and going off of the nutrition point, can you share more about your alter ego, as you call it on your Instagram, Taste by Grace?
Yes.
Share how that started and what you're doing with that account present day.
Yeah. You know, Taste by Grace started as a little food account that I had like my junior year of high school during COVID. And I started it just like I was vegetarian at the time, so I'd make like vegetarian recipes and share them. And over time, it's kind of become a platform where like I advocate for like proper fueling and mental health, specifically in women, but in runners in general. And it's definitely become. I've posted a couple like kind of deep things on there. I started a little blog I guess it's a blog the other day. And it's just kind of an outlet where I've curated like a very specific audience. And I really like, that's where I get deep. I like to share things. I want to eventually be a therapist, so I get to practice my little techniques on there. And I still share recipes when I want to. So I'm no longer vegetarian, but you know, they're still good recipes. Yeah. So it's just it's something a little passion project.
Speaking of recipes, the final question I ask every single guest on every single episode: if you had Gordon Ramsay coming over to your house for dinner, what would you choose to make for him? Perfect segue right there. You set me up.
Oh, this is so difficult. Okay, listen, I'm known to be like a sweet potato person. Like, I consume massive. I ate a sweet potato. So, okay, I would want. This is very specific, but if anybody has ever had a Pizookie from BJ's, it's like this massive cookie. I would like him to make like some sort of sweet potato Pizookie,
Okay.
with some sort of like cream cheese whipped frosting on the top, and maybe like, I don't know, like a peanut butter caramel sauce. I'm always mixing peanut butter with my
I can tell
potato.
you're a good chef by the intricate detail right there. I love it.
We really take our Pizookie seriously. So yeah, if he could do that, that'd be awesome.
Amazing. Well, Grace, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast to share your story and wisdom and insights from your super successful career. And it's been so much fun to follow along the success, both, you know, in high school, when I was in high school. Now you're crushing it at the college stage, and excited to see you've got many more years ahead of you in college, but I'm sure a bright future outside of college ahead. So keep crushing it, and excited to see all the things you'll accomplish in the years to come.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. This was fun.